of...
A very, very good morning, and you might need to adjust your set slightly if it's all looking a little too bright, because I'm wearing what I thought was going to be the coolest outfit at the entire Cape Fine and Rare Wine auction, and then along comes Charlie and blows me out the water, which is not entirely surprising because he is known for both a fabulous sense of dress and also his wonderful auctioneering skills, which is why we kick off a very special edition of Dan Really Likes Wine from the Rupert Museum in Stellenbosch. This is the Cape Fine and Rare Wine auction, formerly the Nederburg auction, now rebranded, and on a very exciting day, on a cool, crisp, blue-skied morning in Stellenbosch, the chance for some of South Africa's best wine to go under the hammer. And you are the man with said hammer. Welcome.
Yes, I haven't forgot it, I think. It's definitely here.
Welcome back to South Africa. It's lovely to have you here. What's the last week been like for you?
Yeah, amazing. I arrived when it was raining. The first time I've ever arrived when it was raining in the Cape. But I drove straight up to the Swartland, which was really fun. Not been there before in this sort of lunar landscape, which is amazing. To taste the Shannon, they're the most exciting wines from the Swartland at the moment. And then came back down through Paarl. And here I'm in Stellenbosch, trying to get you some bids for the ATM21. Hopefully we get some fireworks.
No doubt. And I want to look at some of those wines in a little more detail in a second. But tell me, first of all, about your love of South Africa, because I get the sense that it's more than just, it's a nice place to come to. It's got under your skin a bit. You do have a real passion for our country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I moved here for a 6-month sort of stint working for Steenberg down in Constantia. And that was in about 2012, I think, when I sort of had a, do I want to do university, don't I? In the end, I ended up doing it. But I came here, lived in Obs, which was great, and had this little sort of rent-a-cheapie car. I don't know if that's a plug for rent-a-cheapie, but definitely not, because I drove up to Delagraaf one day and the exhaust fell off as I was coming up the hill. Someone in a Bentley had to help push me into the car park. It's horrendous. And anyway, so I loved it, down there in Constantia, working in the vineyards and the tasting room, and South Africa got under my skin, and I'm delighted to be still involved.
Well, as are we, and it's great to have you back in this capacity. It's a fairly specialist niche, wine auctioneer. You don't meet too many people who do exactly that, and none who do it with quite your panache. How did you find your way into this space?
Yeah, I don't know really. I suppose I'm a failed actor. My mother always says I should tread the boards. But I just love wine. Of course, I started sort of drinking it with mum and dad on Sundays. And then through university, did a classics degree and ended up specialising in the ancient wine trade in Pompeii and Rome. So I really got into it and started working in a wine shop and then a wine company. And then eventually Christy said, hey, I think you're our guy. So I ended up doing that. And at the beginning, I tell you, the auctioneering, I was utterly terrible. I wore hideous suits and I had no idea what I was doing. I couldn't count. I had no flair. And so I just sort of stood there looking like a complete wally. But eventually I just said, look, you've got to game this thing. And it's about performing to as many people as possible. Because maybe 20 people in the room are your bidders, but the rest of us there for a bit of an entertainment. Different, of course, today with the restrictions. Hopefully, every single person is a bidder.
What's the secret to what I think is really an art form, because you're bringing together a performance as well as reading the room and trying to work out which ego is pitted against another, and also knowing your subject, which you do so well. What's your secret to bringing all of that together?
Oh, I don't know if there is a secret. I think, just a good night's sleep before and a good slug of coffee or pinotage in the morning. And then just sort of, getting here early and figuring out the crowd. So I had a little idea from 2 years ago who the sort of bidders were. Slightly different this time around. We're looking for more private clients than trade bidders. That's a result of what's happened in South Africa in the last year. But there's a beautiful array of wines on offer. They've done the catalogue amazingly, and so I think they've given it to me really because we've got some nice long parcels and then some rare single bottles, and so I can play up on a few jokes and keep the natural flow of the thing. So it should be fun.
What about the format now? We've got some people here at the Rupert Museum today, but not nearly as many as we would normally have. And you've now got these anonymous people sitting on digital platforms around the world. How much of a challenge does that become, managing that process?
Well, it shouldn't be a challenge, and hopefully if the technology is all fine, we'll see after the first lot. But usually I just use online like an extra person. They can see you, they think you're talking to them, and I am talking to them. In Christie's sales, you usually have a location, so you can say bids coming in from Malibu or bids coming in from New York, or this sort of thing. So it's slightly different today because the platform is on an iPad. So I've got lots of guys around me helping with the online, but it's just about maybe slowing it down just a touch on these lots where the online is interested. There are people tuning in from all across the world: Ireland, Hong Kong, New York, London, and so it's quite exciting to see those people and pit them against the people who managed to get here to the Rupert Museum to bid on these lots today.
This is an appropriate time for me to take issue with you and your ilk, because you are evil, horrible people who are stopping my children at university because I've spent most of their university funds on online
booze.
and I've seen that. A lot of my friends, a lot of people I know over the last year, as the online auction space has come more into play because of the nature of the world we're currently living in.
Yep.
I think it's built up a new community of people who are vested in this kind of space, who have a lot of fun with it, who take a lot of interest in it.
Yep.
Is that a global phenomenon? Is the online wine bidding space become something that's a lot more prominent?
Absolutely. We've got more bidders and buyers than ever before. Every single sale, you have 150, 200 people tuning in. And I think that's because people are at home bored. They're not eating out in restaurants. Hopefully that's all going to return, but for the past year that's been the case, and I think they get to a stage where they need to de-alienate the evening from the day, and so 5 o'clock you open a bottle, and why not have something interesting? You can have a wine from Stellenbosch, a wine from Swartland, a wine from Barossa, or a wine from England now, and so it's just intriguing to transport yourself to anywhere in the world, from your stoop, wherever your stoop may be.
We obviously hold this auction in high regard, and we're going to give you some detail of the auction in just a moment. But you do so many. I saw you floating through Venice the other day, having lots of fun. What are some of the more fun, the cooler auctions you've done in the last space?
Yeah, sure. Well, we do the Christie's auctions, obviously. The most exciting, probably the Geneva ones, which happen at the Four Seasons.
It was Geneva.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they both have lake, or lagoony lake things. Yeah, so that's where we had a huge auction at the Four Seasons and did incredibly well. We think we broke like 8 world records or something last week, including 6 bottles of 1921 Cheval Blanc, which is obviously in its centennial year, and I sold that for 91,000 Swiss francs.
Oh, that's like 600 trillion rand.
Oh, absolutely mad, isn't it? And then today, obviously, we have a 200-year-old wine, so hopefully we can achieve something amazing with that too. But yeah, we have those Christie's sales, and we haven't done so many charity sales because people haven't really figured out how charity sales should be run online. But they're coming back. We have the really exciting one happening in London this year. It's called the Golden Vines Diversity Scholarship. Basically, 2 people are funded to do the MW course from Black or ethnic minority backgrounds, and lots of money has been put up in order to put those people through the MW or indeed the MS. And a fantastic auction is being held at Annabelle's with lots of amazing lots. So look out for that, guys, if you're really interested in fantastic lots and supporting a really good cause. So that should be really exciting. And the first charity auction that I will have done since 2019, I think.
The world is slowly creeping back to where we knew it. The auction today, I'm really excited. I've had a look through it. I think it's a fabulous cross-section of the South African wine story.
Thanks,
and I know you're excited about it. You've already mentioned that the headline act, and that is that bottle of 1821 Grand Constance. It's a story full of romance. There's wonderful history to it. We know the Napoleon and the Austen and the heaven help us 50 Shades of Grey stories that are all linked to this particular.
Is Jamie Dornan here?
I actually did message him yesterday to ask him if he wanted some, and it really is a fabulous act. But as an actual bottle of wine, throw that romance out the window. Be the cold, steel-hearted auctioneer. How much do you think this is really worth, and is it something you would buy either as an investment or something to drink and actually really enjoy?
Hey, if you want to drink it, be my guest. But I think it really is a collectible item. 200 years old, and it's the 200th year it's been sold here. This is absolutely amazing. And I think really, the wine that was made, it's quite low alcohol, really. It's this beautiful late harvest thing. I'm just imagining the sort of sponge, sugar, caramel, hazelnut complexity of this wine. I really do love these sort of sweeter styles of wines, and they really, really aged incredibly well. Look at Sauternes, look at Tokaj, these Essenzias and these top chems and things, they age for absolutely ages. And so this wine, I think, will have aged deliciously. So I'm hoping that somebody bids and buys on it that will drink it at a fabulous dinner somewhere, and they'll invite me. But if they don't, you could get stored away and then sold in another 100 years. How exciting would that be? If anyone remembers Napoleon, or indeed us.
I think we'll still be there. I'm backing us to be preserved.
Formaldehyde and coffee.
That's the headline act. There is plenty of other wine, though. What else amongst the lots has really caught your eye?
There's really amazing selection of wines, including all of these things from the Swartland, which are exciting. The David and Nadia wines are particularly exciting in the UK. They're often on allocation. They're very rare, and these old back vintages are never seen, really. And so I think these are really fun. The Cabernet Collective lots are really fun. I think Cabernet's really hit its moment in Stellenbosch. It's got this sort of golden triangle of ripeness and refinement here, which is really exciting. So those are the last 2 lots on the sale. Usually the last two lots do quite well. I remember 2 years ago it was the Even Sardi lot that did well in that space. And the Villa Fonte, the large format, we had some fireworks on that last time. Large format's really obviously exciting for party time, and I think the price was something like 3 times the high estimate at the time or something. So hopefully people in the room and online are going to be really interested in that one as well.
And I think 5 litres is a great format for dinner for 2. It's a perfect.
Do you think so?
I know Mike Ratcliffe will be watching that one really, really carefully.
Yep.
The auction as a whole speaks to us as South Africans as a very much a highlight of the wine year. In terms of a more international perspective, what is your view on how the world is seeing South African wine in that higher echelon as a collectible space, as an investment space?
Yeah, I would say 2 things really. I mean, one, the Brits, our hearts bleeds for you in terms of last year and what's happened in the alcohol bans, and please God that another one isn't around the corner. But our heart bleeds, and so we've done our best to try and support you in any way we can, buying as much wine as possible. I think South Africa has had that problem of being viewed as a sort of volume brand before, but it's moving away from that now, and that's what the Cape Fine and Rare is trying to prove. And international critics like Tim Atkin give it 100 points, and Tim give more of them, and so I think that's what's really showing premiumization in South Africa. These beautiful wineries all across the Cape, and they're making exquisite wines in incredibly small quantities, and that's what's exciting about this auction, because you can find these back vintages in tiny quantities. Delicious.
It's a great celebration of South African wine. We are both honoured and very grateful that you've made the trip out to be part of it. Hostess today. Before I let you go and do your hour of stretching and warm up, leap on stage. What does the South African wine industry need to do, you feel, from your perspective, to now go to the next step and to push an industry that we're so proud of, we love, into a space where it's doing even better at an international level?
Oh, well, we had this chat with Tim Atkin on the video, and I think there tends to be a need for more confidence, I suppose. Every winemaker has to have the confidence to say, I am as good as wherever they view they're equal to be. And that South Africans are making absolutely delicious wine all across the Cape, and so I think they have the ability to have this confidence, and also international reputation. It takes more 100 points from Tim Atkin. It takes more interest from international journalists about the wines that are on offer here, and there really is some fantastic stuff. So hopefully we can generate some press on the back of good prices today, and that will help South Africa premiumize just a little bit more.
But without wanting to put any pressure on you, the entire future of the South African wine industry rests on your shoulders today.
Leopard print shawls.
Fabulous leopard print shawls then. I love the Hensbach as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's predator prey. This is what I'm doing.
Charlie, thank you so much.
No problem.
I'll let you go and
thank you very
prepare.
Much. Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
There we go. Charlie Foley, who departs. He is our auctioneer today, bought in at vast expense on private jets and international yachts to come and join us. And it is wonderful to have him hosting as auctioneer at the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction, which is where you find us today in this special live broadcast at the Rupert Museum. I see a couple of people are up early. Mike Radcliffe, morning. He will have enjoyed the mention there of the 5 litres of Villa Fonte. I think it's the only one in existence, if I'm not mistaken. And then Bubbles Highland, Mildred Highland. You both look at you both in your fabulous jackets. Have an awesome day. Sure, you'll be sipping on some sensational wines. Well, we certainly will. We also have more sensational guests, so let's jump straight in and pop on a microphone. And the glamour, there we go. If I can, voila, da-da. And a very good morning.
How are you?
I'm extremely well, and you're looking wide awake and raring to go for fairly early on a Saturday morning. How excited are you for today?
I am. Just let me get this mic going, Dan. My fur is keeping it from. Will that work?
There we go. Perfect.
No, we're very excited. This is the second time that we're having this auction here at the Rupert Museum. And I mean, what a fantastic space to be in, around all those beautiful paintings. But we're extremely excited about lot number 190, which is our Grand Constance. And people are there is just a lot of interest going at the moment.
There's such a buzz about this particular one. It's 200 years old this year, which just adds to the romance and the story of it. I've had a few people ask me though, Dan, it sounds amazing. Could I still drink it?
You know what, Dan, you can. See, right.
Are you giving me permission to?
Yeah. So So what we did in 2019, we recorked 3 of those 1821 bottles. Dampy Bailey is actually the perfect person to tell you the story about that, how they got hold of this bottle. It was sold at Sotheby's, and they bought it back from England. So that was the 3 bottles, and then John Vincent Ridden, which is a head sommelier here from South Africa as well. So they were all, and actually Amarim Cork, they were all in one room. Very, very slowly took off the actual wax that was on there, took it off, took the little cork out, which was actually in really good condition, but a very short cork. It's hand-blown bottles. The liquid was almost black. But the nose, as they were saying, was there was definite apricot fruit on the nose. And then what they do is they add argon gas in. That they use the 3rd bottle to top up 2 bottles so that the fill height looks better and more. And then they basically argon gas to preserve it again. A new cork, new wax, and it is ready to go for probably another 100 years.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it's such an iconic wine, not just for us in South Africa, but globally. And we were talking to Charlie about it just a moment ago. What do you think it's going to do for the South African wine industry when, as we expect, this sells for an astronomical price later today?
I just think, and I think that the winemaking community, you almost want to say, you know what, we have been making wine, good wine, for a lot longer than 350 years. So and it's an iconic. I hope someone from South Africa buys that bottle, so that we can still keep it in the Cape and we don't have to send it across the shores. But yeah, I think it's it might bring us together. This little iconic 375ml bottle. So.
And it is such a cool story, and it's very much the headline act today, but it's certainly not the only act. And I've had a look through, and I think I've cut it down to about 75 lots that I would like to buy. There's just,
you add it up.
I think that's all of them pretty much. It's a great selection. What else from today's really caught your eye?
I think the Shannon's definitely, David and Nadia's high, the Wistian and the Skarikop is quite big ticket items. And we've got Mike Ratcliffe's 5 litre again. I mean, last in 2019, there was quite a roar about his Series C. So that's up again. We've got some nice 9 litre bottles from Miles Mossop. He's also first to the auction this year. With Max, I think, 2014 vintage. And then I tasted the Idiom Sangiovese yesterday, and I think that is something that I want to try and see if I can't get it for myself. So I think this year the lots have been structured a little bit different to previous years and possibly more for private buys this year. So there's smaller lots, there's 1.5, there's 9 liters. So it's a nice little combination of elements and products that you can buy here today. So yeah.
It is a great selection, and it's also one that I think speaks to a shift and an appreciable shift in our South African wine community, prompted I think by the pandemic, and people started buying on online auctions and got involved for the entertainment as much as the wine. But if we look at the wine specifically, do you feel that there is a stronger perception amongst South Africans that our wine is to be collected, it is an investment, it is something that has a greater sense of value?
No, I think so. I really think so. And this is what this auction is all about. That's why we've got a new format auction since 2019. It's smaller. It's a more industry platform. The auction is for the industry. So and we've seen some really great producers come into the auction. And it's all about lifting the fine and rare wine from South Africa and giving it a more global audience to see what is from South Africa, and we can stand tall and proud against a lot of old world, new world wines out there. So, and definitely collectible. There's always just a couple of names that popped up when they say collectible. But I definitely think we're making strides with this auction and taking the best South Africa's got to offer to the rest of the world. I mean, we've got buyers, Fort Lauderdale buyer. He's going to be at 4 o'clock this morning. He needs to get up to be up on our auction at 10 o'clock. Quite a lot of buyers from the UK. So there was really very good interest all the way around. So, and I think the Grand Constance is definitely that little nugget that got people excited.
And I think that sense of people around the world is so important, almost for the pride, the well-being of our wine industry, because the battering we've taken over the last 18 months, this is almost the industry saying to itself, you know what, we make great wine, the world loves our wine, this is just reminding us that we've got something special.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the platform is that way to get people together so that a lot more can be seen and be done for the industry. But yeah, like you say, that we took a hammering the last 18 months. It was hard. So,
do you feel, do you get a sense that we have turned a corner, that we're edging back onto the front foot, and that we're managing to overcome what we've been through?
I think that's probably, if I say yes, that's probably more of a generalization. I think there is that too, but I also think that there is some producers and farms that potentially won't recover from what happened in the last 18 months. So, and that's sad. That is very sad. If some people, and then there's consolidation potentially happening as a result of that. But then there's also the positive side of, we were quite in the limelight because of what happened in South Africa. We were the only country in the world that could not sell alcohol. So that's why they were sort of, the world was looking at South Africa in terms of that, and they really felt and stood behind us. I think there's a group also that they called on Facebook is Save South African Wine. So everyone is vouching for us. All our expats living all over the world was really trying to help South Africa in that regard.
At which point it's important to give a shout out to my mother, who I think is responsible for 8% of South African wine consumption in Northern Ireland, and does it very, very enthusiastically. Before I let you go and start phoning your bank manager to prep him for some nasty scares, just in terms of today, a great crowd coming together here, a great crowd coming together online, just this advert for South African wine. It's already, there's an air of celebration today, and it just feels like it's going to be something really special, isn't it?
I mean, look at us. We're in fur, you have beautiful jackets. So yeah, so no, it feels celebratory. So hopefully we will find it in the wedding room where the pedals stay up.
Well, look, I've got mixed feelings because I want pedals to stay down so I can buy stuff as cheaply as possible, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, the ones that I want, I probably won't get.
All right, well, good luck, happy bidding. Thanks for all the hard work and build-up.
No, thank you very much. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, then.
There we go.
Have a nice day.
Likewise. All right, we are at the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction at the Rupert Museum, surrounded by fabulous pieces of art, but more importantly, some exceptional bottles of wine that are going under the hammer from 10 o'clock this morning, South African time, which is 9 o'clock this morning if you are in the UK. It is 4 a.m. if you happen to be in Fort Lauderdale and you are preparing for this. I know we've also got bidders coming in from Hong Kong, which is really exciting. We've got bidders across the UK who are looking to put some money into this auction. And the great thing about it is, if you are armed with pounds and euros and dollars, what is already, I think, a great selection becomes even more appetizing once you've done a little bit of division and worked out the relative price that you will be paying. So a great wine to come. We've also got a selection of guests to come. We're going to be, I hope, chatting to Michael Fridjhon, chatting to Neil Groenewald, who is the man behind the auction, the director. Remember, this was the Nederburg auction for many, many years. And while the name has changed, what hasn't changed is the commitment to celebrating fabulous South African wine. And if you watched the live show on Monday night, Neil and Charlie were with me on it, and we tasted a couple of wines. We tasted that David and Nadia Shannon, which is just an utter delight, and the Charisma. And in fact, I got a message almost straight afterwards. I got a message from Dean Elgar, the new South African Test captain, to say it is one of his favorite wines and one he drinks regularly. It's always nice to see wine having a following around the country. So plenty of guests to come. And the big story, other than the auction itself, is that very, very special bottle of 200-year-old wine. And that is wine that will be under the hammer a little later on this morning. which we are particularly excited about. Right, our dazzling collection of guests continue. And every time I think I'm going to be the best dressed person here, somebody else rocks up with the temerity to look even better than me, which is most annoying.
How are you doing, man?
I'm extremely good. It's lovely to see you.
Pleasure to
Welcome.
see you.
How excited are you?
Very. I mean, today we're dealing with history. You know, like it's a big day for South African wine industry, and you know, that's a legacy we're dealing with. So yes, I'm very excited.
And it's just nice to have an event, to have people together. I know there's a big virtual part today, but to actually have a few people in the room, to see friends in the industry, and to come together again.
I mean, we just wonder if you'd be able to recognize each other. You know, we haven't seen each other for such a long time in real life, or maybe just with, you know, behind masks. So yes, it's a very exciting moment.
All right, the headline act today, this 200-year-old bottle of wine. It's just such a wonderful story. The history of it, the romance of it. There's just so much that makes it such a great piece today.
Yes, I mean, I've been extremely lucky to open this bottle, change the cork with the Armorium Clinic to make sure we can protect the legacy of our industry, and it can go again for maybe not 200 years, but for a while. And I was surprised by the quality of the wine. You know, the reason... maybe my personal reason why I came to South Africa is bottles like that prove the potential of this country to be one of the best in the world, if not the best, and showing that we can have a proper track of record with bottled beautifuls after 200 years. I mean, we don't have to be ashamed from anyone from France, Germany, Spain, or Italy. We are the wine history in South Africa, so that's beautiful to be part of it. And yes, it's exciting to see, you know, that Distel is willing to part with one of this treasure, because I mean, I don't know if I can afford to be the lucky one today, but hey, I'll take my chance. It's definitely worth every cent. It's it's a piece of art.
As you say, you've been lucky enough to taste this.
Yeah.
So like, I'm feeling lucky to sit next to somebody who's tasted it. I mean, that's how awesome this story is.
I mean,
tell us, what was that experience like?
It's, you know, when you recork wines, you always have the possibility to refill the bottle. Clearly, we didn't have bottles to sacrifice to refill it. But in the past, I've been tasting one wine that was not part of this Distel collection. And the wine was actually so good. And we had beautiful bottles ready to be sacrificed to refill the wine, something like Chateau Yquem, like the best sweet wines of the world. And it was decided that nothing was good enough to reach that level. I mean, I would have loved to finish the bottle of Yquem after refilling the bottle, but it's just to tell you how this Constance wine can survive the test of time, but not just surviving. The quality is divine. So yes, I had probably one micro sip of it. You know, I use the laboratory equipment to do the recorking, but I still have this memory on my palate. That's what great wines are.
Oh, it's still staggering. Even, I think, for those of us who work in the industry, knew far more than me, but the concept of a 200-year-old wine and still being something that can jump onto your palate and create such delight is just amazing.
I think it's beyond imagination, because that the year Napoleon was dead, you know, there was no car, there was just the beginning of steam machines. We don't realize that it's 200 years sounds, you know, we use big figures. That's not that far, but actually the world has completely changed since then. And that's, I could compare that to a time capsule, actually. You know, when we open the bottle, this bottle has been, it said on it, recorked or decanté in 1889. You have to imagine that it was before the first nuclear explosion. The air was different. Might be a lot of coal, sulfur in the air. You don't know. In that bottle was part of our human history that maybe is only protected in caves where cavemen were, and that's been sealed by something. So yes, it's. I mean, I feel very excited, as you can see.
And it is contagious, because I'm feeling exactly the same way. It is the headline act, but it's not the only story we have today. So let's try very hard to set that aside for just a moment, as excited as we are about it.
I'm going to be very quiet and calm. Okay.
And let's have a look at the rest of the auction. What is getting you particularly upbeat about the other lots?
I mean, the process of the auction is every year the panel, which has been extended to a sommelier this year with Joseph's joining, is to find out what the industry has available in minute quantities. And some brands might not be the most famous one, but surprisingly, they pass through the test of the most stringent qualification. And I mean, I'm myself a buyer at the auction, and I'm never disappointed. The wines are always perfect, but not only they're perfect to drink. You know, we the new generation, we want immediate gratification. Nobody wants to store wine, age wine. We're lucky at this auction to have wine that has been kept by the producers or by distill for some older vintages, and they are ready now. Many of them can still be kept for longer, but you can open the bottle tomorrow and you'll have probably what the best wine can give, which in modern days is a true luxury. You know, we all buy wine, you buy wine, and said, gosh, it's so young now, this 2017, 2015, said, I'll keep it for 20 years. What are we going to be in 20 years? You know? So here now, you can just buy immediate gratification. And some of the lots are very exciting. The Tabernacle lot are in the same sense of what's happening with the Vin de Constance, the Grand Constance 1821. But ones from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. I mean, the jury, like Cathy Van Zyl, Ottenbach, Michael Fridjhon, they're not newcomers in wine. They can see the depths and how great these wines here. And in that collection, they've been selecting, they've been tasting, recorking some wines. That's the best of the best, la crème de la crème. So I think that every lot is definitely worth bidding on, even if you don't know the brand. I remember at the last auction buying wine, which I actually haven't been tasting, but I can buy it blindly because there's a seal of quality on the wine, and that's probably what I'll do today. Sometimes you make wonderful bargains, and some people will all fight for this precious bottle. I know there's even big volumes like the Villafonte big bottle. So yes, people will be very excited. It's a social statement. They are fabulous wine, but sometime in the corner of the catalog, you'll find diamonds in the rough, but not much in the rough anymore, but diamonds for sure.
I think we probably have a similar philosophy today. For the sake of the auction and for the sake of South African wine, we'd love to see record prices, but as individual buyers, we'd like to see them as low as possible.
I know. We've got a great auctioneer and is really pushing everyone in the room, and this time it will be as well online, people to value the wines properly. You know, we must as well remember the price achieved here are still very great value for money. I don't say it's cheap at all, but these wines are guaranteed. They've been tested. It's not like they've been kept in the ideal condition from the beginning. You know, sometimes you buy wines from friends or in auctions, you don't have a proper track of record. Here, you know that the old Niederberg has been in Niederberg cellar since 1980. So, and it's been tested and it's been approved by a very, connoisseur group, much more than us. So yes, it's I don't want the prices to go too high. I still want to go home with some wine, but it's good for the industry. Prices go very high because it shows that we are resilient and we appreciate the quality of our own history, our own patrimony, our own heritage, and not only for the old bottle, but the more recent vintages are actually history in the making.
When those prices do go high, and we know that they will, it's pretty much guaranteed. It does speak.
Don't take my paddle.
It does speak to the value of the wine, certainly, but it also suggests to me that there's a growing sense of wine being an investment space. This is something I can put money into. Is that a fair reflection of where we are as a South African wine market?
It is. I got a very personal opinion on wine in investment wines. Yes, some wines got great value and are fairly liquid in terms of reselling them. So you can see an opportunity to invest your money, will you make profit out of it? That's a big gamble. But the good news, you might have been buying shares from Enron, and now they're nothing. At least a bottle, the crisis hit the market, it was nothing. You can still drink it and have pleasure. And if you become rich and don't need the money, you can still drink it. Yes, it's a once-off moment. We're surrounded by beautiful investment pieces of art. The beauty of paintings is that, you can share it with more than 10 people. But the wine, you got memories which are for your lifetime. I still remember many of the great ones I drank, and when I close my eyes, I can still feel the emotion the same way I can feel the emotion of some paintings I've seen at the National Gallery, at the Uffizi, or at the Louvre. So, yes, it's a gratification, but it can last for much longer. So for investment, I don't say I don't have wine that I keep for investment, hoping that I will never have to resell them and I can afford to drink them. So this auction, you can play both. Yes, if I buy the 1821, I probably will not drink it because that's going to be a great investment. There's very few bottles of that quality, of that level, still available in the world. So now you play on the proper rarity. And yes, that's a perfect investment vessel because it's been recorked, it's been checked. So you can go now for 50 years. It can only gain value. Some of the rare wines, even of smaller producers, who knows that these recent producers on the South African history will not be the Romantic County of the country in 20 years from now. So I think you can indulge both need when you buy wine for investment. Yes, it's a fairly safe investment because these wines are very rare. So it's not like bank notes that you can keep on printing. This is gold. So gold can go up, can go down, but when things go bad, you still got gold. And when things go bad, you can still drink a beautiful wine. So if you intend to buy for investment, do it. There's little you can lose. You can gain money, but most of it you can gain emotion because wine is made to be drunk and shared with friends. Imagine how unforgettable the moment you'll have with friends when you share this precious bottle. Yes, it will make a social statement. We're all here to say, I can afford a bottle like that. And you can see that in the restaurant as a sommelier. I see them, sometimes they want the bottle to be really displayed on the middle of that. All the restaurant knows that what they're drinking. It's okay. You have to share as well your happiness of enjoying this moment, but share it with friends. That's, depends what you buy. Then I become even more friend with you. Then I can share some more wine with you, We'll see that later.
I think it's a wonderful philosophy, and it sums up pretty much mine as well. You have some wine to buy, so I will let you go, but not before I ask you one final question. Yes, the 200-year-old wine is the one we'd all love to go home with, but is there another lot, a specific lot that you think has just got something really special to it that you're desperately hoping nobody else bids on?
Yeah, but if I say that to everyone, people will bid on it. I got a very soft spot for the Metzer Chenin Blanc. I think there's only 2 cases, but this Chenin Blanc is really coming from the Loire Valley. One of the best examples of what South Africa can offer. It's tight, and also it's not to be drinkable now. This Chenin Blanc can last probably for 20 years. So, and Metzer wines are not the most famous yet. So, yeah, that could be a good deal. The other one is the Stellenbosch Collective wine, because the problem, you only get one wine of each. So once you will drink the bottle, you'll feel with this emptiness or the need for more. And where the next bottle? That's why having at least a case is nice. And yes, there's the big volume, the Villa Fontes. I think that's a 2005 Series C. 5 liter. How many friends can you make with that?
I think I said this to Charlie earlier. I think it's a great bottle for 2 people for dinner.
Let's hope he invites me.
Have a great morning. Thanks for all the hard work and the build-up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing the story, particularly of the...
and thank you for sharing with the world our intense and exciting the day will be here.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Fun. Right, I can feel there's a buzz really about people as they look ahead to this auction, and that 200-year-old wine just sounds fabulous. I see, oh, look, my dear mum is indeed watching. Slightly early for me on Saturday, but worth it if I need to see you and Charlie in your jackets. Or if you missed Charlie earlier, he is wearing a fabulous black and gold leopard print suit, which is just magnificent, as is both our venue. We're here at the Rupert Museum for the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction, which gets underway at 10 o'clock South African time, so just over an hour from now, and it includes some absolutely staggering wine. You can follow it online if you're looking just to see what's going on. The Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction Twitter handle is a good place to go, and we'll be keeping you updated through the day on the Dan Really Likes Wine channels as well. So who is to come? Well, we're hoping a little later to speak to Michael Fridjhon once he finishes his breakfast Chardonnay, and joins us. Neil Gronevolds, who is the director of the auction, is also one of our guests. Again, just waiting for him to come through. He's got an understandably busy morning before things get going, and we put some fabulous wine under the hammer. People have been registering from all over the world. You heard a little earlier, there are people in Fort Lauderdale. How dedicated are you to collecting wine when you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to join an online auction? Well, that's exactly what one of our bidders will be doing. We've got a nice collection of bidders coming in from the UK, and they'll be joining at 9 o'clock UK time, so not too bad. And I think there's a fair sprinkling joining us from Hong Kong as well. So it really is a global auction today, with a wonderfully South African focus. And as a couple of our guests have said already, it's one that not only celebrates South African wine, but also reminds us here in South Africa as an industry that we've got some rather nice product. It is liked by the world at large, and it is a day of celebration. We're just looking to see, we've got hopefully some more guests joining us in a moment. It is still slightly early in the day. What you can do is head over to that Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction website if you're interested in exactly what is on offer. A selection of lots that are going to be on sale a little later on today, and they've all got an estimate. Now, the estimate is a fairly educated guess, but it's certainly not a perfect science, because, as was mentioned a little earlier, I think that Villa Fonte 5 litre, when it got sold a few years ago, went for 3 times the estimated high price. And I think we're going to see something today. What everybody is waiting for, though, is to see what the price is on that 200-year-old bottle of Vin de Constance, the Grand Constance, of Napoleonic fame, of Austin fame, of 50 Shades of Grey fame, and what that goes for a little later on today. I think guesses are somewhere between 150 to 200,000 Rand, but I suspect it might be even more than that. A real piece of South African wine history. There's also a fair amount of Chenin Blanc that's being sold today, and Chenin Blanc is headlining so much of the South African wine charge around the world, either on its own or as part of a Chenin-led blend. And that's a story we will share a little later with Greg Sherwood, who'll be joining me from London, provided he's got out of bed. It's Saturday morning, which means last night was Friday night, which means Greg was having some wine, I have no doubt. But if we get him up in time, he'll be telling us about just how much of an impact South African Chenin continues to have on the UK market. And there is some superb Chenin that is part of our selection of wine today. Now I see on the horizon, about to add some much needed dazzle to our live broadcast, is somebody you've seen on Dan Really Likes Wine recently. He's pretty much the godfather of South African wine. Michael Fridjhon, the international cricketer and occasional wine judge and critic, who has finished his morning Chardonnay and is now ready to come and join us on this special broadcast from the Rupert Museum. It is the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction, and it is Michael Fridjhon, a very warm welcome.
Mr. Nichols, how are you?
I'm extremely
I
well.
see you are obviously dressed for the same cricketing occasion, the Stellenbosch IPL.
Well, I thought I was going to be the most dazzling person here, and then I saw Charlie in his
No,
suit.
Charlie wipes you all out. I thought about that and I decided, no, this is not an occasion where you want to go bright, because whatever happens, you're going to be in the shade.
The auction gets underway in just over an hour. There's a real sense of excitement both here at the Rupert Museum, I think generally in the wine community about today. Is that a fair assessment?
I do think so. There is a sense, I think that the first auction, no one knew what to expect. And so there was a degree of skepticism, maybe, certainly a kind of let's look, wait, see, and decide. And I think that what is emerging is that this is very much a different kind of auction. It's evolved from the Nederburg auction, but it's not the Nederburg auction. There's some DNA connection, but basically it's a totally different kind of selection. And I think that what distinguishes it is that it really is a broad and fair reflection of the finest of what's being produced in Cape Wine, across a range of styles and from a range of producers. And if you take the very broad distinction between, if you like, estate wine in the sense of the equivalent of the chateau, the Cape Dutch homestead, the large cellar, the rolling vineyards, and that is, if you like, the Bordeaux of South African wine. And then you've got these not just geeky wines, but small producers, people who have sought out old vineyards, people who are really trying to craft something from a very much smaller block of vines, which, if you like, is the Burgundy of Cape Wine, where there's a lot of craft, much smaller quantities. And somehow both of those seem to have been assembled in this catalogue. So there are people who can shop here for wines that have got 30, 50, 100 years of pedigree and track. And then there are wines that have got the excitement of a new generation of winemakers.
There also seems to be a bit of a shift in terms of who the wine is aimed at. In the past, you go back to the Nederburg auction, there was a sort of trade purchase. Now, I think there are a lot of private buyers who are lined up for this, and it's become quite a cool space to play in for people who like wine. This online auction space. Now, I think that's reflected in the way this has been put together.
It's certainly, I think, exactly that. And I sat in the other day in a so-called hybrid auction. I was, in fact, the only person in the room. There was a lot of activity elsewhere, and I think from around the world. But what I did is I held my phone, and so I watched the online bidding at the same time as I was in the room, which is also a way of keeping an eye on the auctioneer. But the really interesting thing is there is an excitement. You think there can't be because of that slight latency on the line. You think, well, auctioneer has to wait, as we do when we watch somebody on BBC or CNN ask a question, and there's that second and a bit gap, but actually it still builds, and auctioneers have changed in how they handle things, because without the vibe in the room, they have to make the vibe work in the online, and it worked perfectly then, and with a reasonable attendance here, despite the obvious restrictions in terms of numbers, you've got both of those happening. So yes, I think there will be a completely different shopping audience, and there are so many wines on the sale that actually you're not going to be able to buy unless you're shopping at the sale. That produces its own kind of excitement.
The range of wine is extraordinary, but there is a very clear headline act, and it's one you've got a closer relationship with than most. 200 years of South African wine history in a little bottle that is going under the hammer today. How excited are you about that particular wine, and how important is that sale of wine to our industry?
I think it is an extraordinary and significant lot. There's not a lot of wine of that kind of age around. There's even less of it that you can be confident you could drink, and that you can be confident that your grandchildren will be able to drink it, because that wine is now officially immortal. And there's been some research done on what happens to wines which have got sugar and a little bit of alcohol and then have settled. And that research shows that at a point, that wine has very limited risk of deterioration. This is the bottle I was present at and partly involved in the recorking. It's a wine that I've been fortunate enough to have drunk several times. So I certainly knows the bottle, and it was absolutely authentic and immaculate. And so it's gone under recorking to a future that could be as long as it's past. That in itself is amazing. I mean, I have had very old, unfortified wines from immaculate provenance, and one is reminded of what Andrei Tretelev, the American winemaker, said about wine that was very old. He said and I'm afraid this is a bit politically incorrect, he said it's like making love to an old woman. It can be done, it might even be pleasurable, but it requires a great deal of imagination. No such requirement is here. You are going to be confronted with an extraordinary bottle of wine that is still vibrant and youthful. And the first time I ever had a bottle, I took the glass home from the tasting, and the next morning, the empty glass smelt of the wine and smelt just as fresh. It's truly a wine that, bought today, will do for somebody's grandchildren's wedding.
You've had hundreds of thousands of wine over the course of your distinguished career. Is the memory of that wine as good as anything else you've had?
Absolutely. You know, if you asked me to list 5 wines that the memory of which would sort of hauntingly be present for the rest of my life, it's very comfortably in the 5. In fact, the several bottles are probably making up most of the 5.
and understandably so. Are you willing to take a stab at what it might sell for today?
I'm comfortable that it will get to probably double top estimate. I'd like to think it's going to cross the 200,000 Rand mark. 200,000 Rand, if you wish to be sort of slightly broad. I mean, this is a unique bottle of wine, or unique. We know that there are a few others about, but the chances of another one coming off on auction in the lifetime of any of the bidders here is very rare. And it's truly, in the late 18th century, Constantia was the most expensive wine in the world, selling for significantly more than any of the already famous French and European sites. So this is a wine that comes from the high point of the era of the appellation, and it should therefore, in terms, be a lot more than £10,000.
Definitely should. And I think there's also the added South African story that when it was made, the assistant winemaker in 1821 was Jan Boland Coetzee.
That was fine, but that's because we were just getting ready to start playing rugby.
It's so easy to talk about this wine and to do so for a long period of time, but there is a lot of other wine on the auction. I know you've had a very close look at everything. What else in this list causes great excitement?
So, the answer is one of those lists where if you start picking, you're going to do a disservice to the ones who don't pick. But I do think that the Old Vine Project mixed lots, which are the tiny produce of vineyards which are certified as old vines, so 35 years or more, and have all of them been made by people who have crafted the wine with an understanding and the knowledge of the potential of that vineyard, and which have been made in such tiny quantities so they are all mixed lots where there is only one bottle each of several of these old vine wines, 12 generally, that you say to yourself, these are wines you're never going to get to taste if you don't actually buy the mixed lot. And even if you're going to buy it for the 5 or 6 wines you've always wanted to taste, there's a world of surprise in the other ones that make up that case. So that for me certainly is one of those lots that if you're shopping, you've got to chase some of those. I think there's a very interesting thread in the Chenin Blancs generally that are on the sale. And so particularly considering that there are some of them in those Old Vine Project lots and then elsewhere in the sale, the evolution of Cape Chenin in the last 20 to 30 years has been nothing short of extraordinary. So I think that for people who are really trying to understand what it is that South Africa does that is extraordinary and unique, i.e. a real expression of our terroir and of our history and of the focus of our winemakers, cherry-picking your way through those Chenin lots is something people could reasonably do. And then there are, as always, great cabs and great cab blends. At a tasting last night, I had the 2011 Cobbler's Hill from Jordan, and it was just perfectly poised. You know, that moment when you have a glass of wine and you think to yourself, I'm not in a hurry to drink it, but if somebody reaches to take this glass, I might have to kill them.
I think we've just seen the price of those double because they've had the endorsement of Mr. Fridjhon. So bang goes my attempt to buy any of them. But it is a great assessment. It's also a great reflection of our wine industry at the moment, which leads me to ask you how important in a broader sense is today for an industry that has been so under the cosh for the last 18 months?
I think it's very important for a number of reasons. I think that in the lockdown, firstly, there was a huge international kind of rolling wave of support. As people realized that the attitude that the committee that seems to think that we are in need of nanny attention had done something that was irrational and damaging at every level to this Western Cape community, to the 250,000 people who work in and around wine, in addition to the 700,000 or 800,000 people that work at all the various levels of the industry. So there's a real international awareness. But simultaneously, I think that what did happen in lockdown, strange as it may seem, is that people suddenly found themselves firstly having to reach out for almost anything they could get from friends, sellers, and from bootleggers. And they commoditized wine unintentionally. And now that that pressure is over, I think there's a real surge of people saying, listen, we're not there just to buy whatever wine we can get. There is a moment where we have to recognize that this is a country that makes fabulous wines. It has growing international support precisely because of what happened during lockdown, and that we are not only the beneficiaries and the participants, but we are part of this sudden new wave. And I think that for the industry will fill people again with confidence. For the consumers, it will remind them that it's actually about smaller quantities of superfine wine. So all of these things shift us from that kind of bulk commoditized, that world of thinking that wine is evil and alcohol no matter what, to the idea that bottles of wine are artifacts of art, that they are the aesthetic representation of the vision of the winemaker and of the beneficence of nature in the Western Cape.
Is it then almost a reminder to ourselves as much as the rest of the world, just to, actually we're quite good at what we do, and we need to believe in ourselves, and we will come back from
That's what I'm saying. It's a kind of reminder to all of us that just because we've been coshed, we can't get up. We can get up. We can dust ourselves down. We can say, that's okay. We all take a knock every now and again, and we just got to keep going. It's got that to it, and it's that we've got to keep going, not because we have to as a survival thing, but because it's worth keeping going.
I love hearing that. I know, you often dish out doses of realism to our industry, but I love that optimism, and I think today does embody it. Before we let you head off, are you bidding today?
I wasn't going to, but now I am. So the truth is that as I got to the door and they said registration is there, and then I got hijacked to come here, I thought I'm going to take a paddle, because although I always think you can't both be a member of the panel, a consultant to the operation, and then also be a participant, I don't want to see any of those lots that I'd really not go for what it's worth. So yes, I will.
All right. Well, good luck. I hope you get the stuff that you like. Thanks for all the hard work being part of the auction, as well as everything wine industry. And I look forward to a long lunch with you next week.
I'm looking forward to it. Nice to see you. All the best for the day.
Thank you very
Cheers.
much.
Bye-bye.
International cricketer and occasional wine critic and judge, Michael Fridjhon, joining us as a very special guest on Dan Really Likes Wine. And a man who's drunk that 200-year-old wine. I've sat next to two people who have drunk it now, which makes me very excited. I don't think it's going to be wine that I myself will be going home with, much as I'd love to, but I really do hope that it is somebody here in South Africa who keeps it with us as the national treasure that 1821 Grand Constance is. So we're an hour in to a special 2-hour live broadcast from the Rupert Museum in Stellenbosch, the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction. as we celebrate a really special day for the industry. Many of you will know it from its previous iteration as the Nederburg auction, and it's changed not just in name, but I think in style as well. And Michael there just confirming that in years gone by, it was an auction that was very much attended by the trade, people buying wine for their restaurants, perhaps for the retail space that they worked in, but now a lot of private buyers, a lot of people buying for their own collections, buying wine to store, to keep, to drink, possibly to resell in time to come, because there is that sort of value to so much of the wine. But for me personally, it's just wine that I would love to buy so that I can drink it and enjoy it and celebrate wonderful South African wine. So that was Michael Fridjhon. A big thank you to Michael. If you did miss it, it's still sitting online on our various channels. A wonderful interview with Michael Fridjhon that ran over 2 episodes, where we talked about his journey in wine, how he fell into the space, and how his wine journey has developed from there. And it's just always fascinating to speak to him and to talk about this wine journey. And it's just absolutely fantastic to have voices like that joining us. So our collection of guests continues. We've got more people arriving here at the Rupert Museum as we build up to that 10 o'clock start. And we've got a lot of people who've already got paddles in hand and are preparing to join us. So let's jump in. We've got one of our judges with us, who is holding a cup of coffee and pretending to drink coffee. I suspect there's actually some wine in that cup, and not really. Francois, please come and join us. And a very good morning. Well, welcome. Lovely to have you.
Yeah, likewise. Great to be here.
The day has finally arrived.
Yeah, it's been quite a lead up. Certainly lots to look forward to. So I'm certainly up for the day. Beautiful venue, and the day is looking good too outside. So nice finish off to the great rain we've had.
Indeed. Give us a sense of the build-up. This is the day everybody sees. What they don't see is the work that leads into it, and there is a considerable amount of work. How does that process play out?
Well, we've got a wonderful, it's a small focused panel. Michael, Cathy as the core team members. But we've now had a lovely addition, so that's all good, in Joseph. So he's come on board. It's always good to make sure that you have younger team members in the panel, because it brings different perspectives and things like that. So that's all positive. But really the lead up is for us, looking forward to what are the producers going to be submitting? Have they been really digging properly into their treasure troves of history? No, I've always been a great supporter of wine libraries for the producers. You want to be able to show journalists and really great private buyers what you've got hidden away. But you also need to make sure that you don't keep them for too long. So that's the kind of things that we're looking for them to release. And then we screen through them, look at, is this the kind of wine that would be suited to interest from buyers internationally, locally, etc. And then effectively drawing up a shortlist so that we can then focus in, taste them blind, look at where is that particular vintage at this point in time. And then it's really the team put together that list. It always seems like this vast sea of wines and then quite narrow down when you look at the final result. But I had a work through the catalogue last night, and there's some really superb wine, so really worth investing in.
The art here, I suppose, is to work out who are we trying to sell the wine to and what do we think they would like to drink, which might not always be what you want to drink, but you've got to think about what is going to sell. How tough is that?
Fortunately for me, I'm doing that most days, in the sense that I'm a wine purchaser for the Singita Conservation Group. So in that sense, I'm not looking at my personal preferences. As a norm, I'm looking at how are we going to excite the people who are visiting Southern Africa and East Africa. So in that sense, in this case, you're looking for diversity of offering. If we had on the auction only wines in a particular style, then you're going to limit yourself in terms of drawing interest. So slightly more youthful developed wines, and then real wonderful old timers, genuine treasure troves. But what we are looking in all of those wines, there needs to be a sense of freshness. The wine needs to be alive. there is a difference between an old kitchen chair and a genuine antique. And I always sort of have this little watchword. How is that going to play out in terms of in the eye of the beholder? We are all different in what we enjoy and the style of wine. But we all do prefer to have something that seems alive rather than dead.
We can't start a discussion on the actual wines without beginning with that headline act. We've just been chatting to Michael about it now. A 200-year-old wine, even for someone like you who spends so much time in the wine world, who drinks so much great wine, has access to incredible wine. This is just next level.
It is, and it is. It seems a little silly to say it's so super rare and it's so rare an opportunity, but it is genuinely the case. And because of the provenance of the bottles, there is pretty much no doubt that this is the genuine article. And personally, I've always been a believer that wines are made to share and enjoy. And as much as it's good to preserve history, there were 3 bottles, so to put one on the auction it waves the flag of what has happened in Constantia and the greater wine producing area. And I think it's really vital to not just read in the history books that Napoleon loved this product, and as we know, this is the year he passed away. So it is really a major talking point. But it will also be good to put it out there. Somebody who feels that it would be good to take it on board, share it with 1 or 2 people. I hope that they do, because it will then give an opportunity to reference. How is the wine actually looking? Because we know when they recorked it that they made sure the wine was still in good condition. But because of the small volume, of course, you're not going to really be tasting it in that sense. So I'm very excited to see what the thoughts are once that bottle is opened.
I love the fact that you feel whoever buys it should share it, and I think they should probably share it with somebody called Fridjhon, somebody called Dan.
Well, this is the perfect audience, is it not?
What about the rest of the wine? You've been through so much of it, you know it intimately, you know what's on sale today. What maybe if not the oddities, the wine that's perhaps not quite so high profile, do you think is worth looking out for?
I was assisting in hosting 1 or 2 select buyers to look at some of those wines, and we came across the Idiom Sangiovese. It's a 2007 vintage, and it's not a grape, the Tuscan grape, of course. It's not often that one comes across them in South Africa, and this one, more often than not, people would imagine this is past its best, but actually the profile of the wine has really blossomed now. It's settled down. There's this beautiful inner core of bright red fruit, and it's really exciting, and it's different. So yes, we've always made some great Cabernet-based wines, and of course there's the whites and things like that are very, very exciting in South Africa. But here was a wine that, out of the blue was exciting to look at. There are the great classics. There's a superb Kanonkop on the auction. And there's a Kanonkop charity item on the auction, which is very exciting. But I think sometimes something a little unusual is fantastic. There is some brilliant Chenin Blanc that is really worth seeking out. And there's a little bit of style for all. So we've got top examples from David and Nadia, and then you've got the almost counterpoint, that wonderful concentration that one sees from De Morganson, from Stellenbosch, and both formats, so 750s and Magnums available. So in that sense, depending on the size of your willingness to share, you can purchase a couple of Magnums too. So exciting there.
Probably the only thing I could take issue with you and your fellow judges is that you've actually just given us too much. It is so hard to decide, what am I going to spend my children's university fund on today?
Well, you see, you've got to hope that if they through university, then they can sort of help you along. And of course, with a little bit of personal research at university, they may just get to the point where they're going to enjoy the wine with you. So, it's not all bad in that sense. But, when you have a number of riches in that selection, it is tricky. I always believe that one must remain true to oneself in terms of style. If this is a style of wine that you enjoy, go for it. we may all have sort of expertise that we can share and guide and assist, but ultimately it doesn't help to move away from where your comfort zone is, because then no matter how pristine the wine is, it's not quite as rewarding as that style that you really enjoy. And that's one of the great advantages of South Africa, because we produce such wonderful wines in very different styles.
You will know through your work with Singita how important wine is for telling a South African story, and you've shown it to people from all over the world. How valuable is a day like today as a window into South African wine for the rest of the world?
I think it's becoming more and more vital. It's wonderful to tell the stories, but we actually want to create more and more international ambassadors. So by exciting the wine world, where you have an opportunity to share things that many people around the world have in common. So sharing a bottle of wine, a glass or two, and where did you find this wine? It's extraordinary. Oh, this is wine from South Africa. We managed to purchase it through the auction, and it's so exciting. I'm looking forward to going there, or I've been, and this is how good it was. And it really does work a treat, because it's not like those old boring slideshow evenings of innumerable photos of various things way in the distance. In this case, it's something that is exciting somebody because of the contents of the glass, the liquid beauty beverage and it's a shareable thing. That's the beauty of it. And then, of course, everybody gets excited, book, etc. And we're going to need this. People are, I think, mentally exhausted. Many of our guests are saying they can't wait to return for a restorative experience. Get back to nature and believe that there is hope for the world.
I know that Michael Fridjhon is throwing decorum out the window and being completely unprofessional and bidding himself. Are you going to be raising a paddle or two today?
It's always worthwhile. I always believe you go as neutral as possible. You don't want to share too much. On the other hand, working through the catalog, understanding the styles of wines our guests enjoy, there's a couple of beauties there. So I'm sure you'll see the paddle whip up and down.
I'll be watching those. Fridjhon, thank you for all the hard work and the build-up. Onerous stuff, having to taste bottle after bottle after bottle of world-class wine, but you do it selflessly, and
someone has to do it. Brilliant.
Fridjhon, thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure.
One of our judges here at the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction, who, together with Cathy and Michael and Joseph, who I think is also joining us in the next little while, giving us this cross-section of wine that makes up our selection at the 2021 Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction, formerly the Nederburg Auction, and now the auction that is just capturing so much interest right around the world. I see a few of you are up early and watching, for which we are very grateful. Liesel from Paul Kluver saying good morning. We'll be chatting to the Paul Kluver team as part of our International Chardonnay Day celebration coming up on Thursday. That will include, who else have we got? Devetsov, who've got such an important part to play in the history of Chardonnay in South Africa. We will also be talking to Bartony, and we'll be talking to Hamilton Russell. So that's our collection coming up, and possibly even somebody from Shovely. We'll wait and see if we can confirm somebody there. That's Thursday's show, and then before that, Monday's show, we'll be speaking to the bigger names, to the older names in South African wine, Belgium, as well as Durbanville Hills, and some red wine from Durbanville Hills. It's not just Sauvignon Blanc that the estate makes. There's also some rather nice red, and in particular their Lighthouse Collection Merlot, which will be headlining that. So that is the show coming up on Monday, Thursday, International Chardonnay. If you are just tuning in and you're wondering where we are, it is the Rupert Museum, and a glorious museum it is. There are fabulous works of art all around me, as there are fabulous bottles of wine waiting next door to be auctioned off by Charlie Foley, our auctioneer, who we had on at the start of the show. If you think my jacket is bright, you should see what Charlie's wearing today in his black and gold leopard print suit. It is a fabulous, fabulous piece, and he is cutting a dazzling figure, as he will on stage. And if you're watching as one of the bidders virtually, you'll be seeing him live from 10 o'clock when the auction gets underway, with a selection of wine that we can't really mention enough, headlined by that 200-year-old bottle of Grand Constance, the 1821. And the price of that, Michael Fridjhon felt it would go north of 200,000 Rand. If I remember back to the Cape wine auction, 1.3 million Rand, I think, is the most I've sold a bottle of wine for. I'd love to see that Grand Constance get up to something similar, but we will know a little later on today. And the pricing will be fascinating because there'll be a lot of good value to be had, but I think there'll also be a few lots which are just going to skyrocket once the momentum builds and people get stuck into the bidding process at the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction. So far today, we've caught up with Charlie, we've caught up with Cathy, caught up with Jean-Vincent, we have caught up with Michael Fridjhon, and just a moment ago speaking to Fridjhon Rotenbach, one of the judges and also the wine buyer for the Singita collection. Together they have given us this fine list of wine, the list of which is available on the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction. So you can go and have a look through. And if you want to follow it, you can follow it online. And I think in particular, if you happen to be on Twitter, I know the Cape Fine and Rare Wine team will be updating every single purchase as they unfold and as those prices start coming in. So still to come today, and I'm just scanning my horizon to see when they arrive in our studio here at the Rupert Museum. Joseph Dafana, the South African sommelier, he's an award-winning sommelier. He's part of a fabulous wine film I think Jancis Robinson's involved with a documentary that's coming out, I think next month, or possibly July. So we'll talk to Joseph. He's now part of the judging team, the guys who put together the collection of wine. We'll also, I'm hoping, chat to Neil Groenewald, who is the man behind the auction director. And then also, if he is out of bed on Saturday morning in London, I can't guarantee it, but if we do get him up, Greg Sherwood, the South African Master of Wine, who does so much to support South African wine and to keep it flowing pallets across the UK. But I see the figure of Neil Groenewald is on my horizon, so I think he will be joining us very shortly to run through today's process and to celebrate a fantastic day. We've got a wonderful collection of people, and they're all doing exactly what I'm doing, which is building up the excitement and the celebration of the 2021 Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction, which is followed on from the Old Nederburg auction, and which is already filling up for our audience here today. Let's jump over. We have another guest. I'm seeing a few familiar faces also arrived today, getting ready to bid. Let's jump in. We have a Master of Wine, always slightly intimidating. There we go. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see that beaming smile, which is not surprising the least, because this is a very exciting day.
It's a wonderfully exciting day. Yesterday, I was just telling you this before. I mean, I always take control. It's just really stupid of me. But yesterday, I tasted a selection of 20 wines unexpectedly with some buyers. And to be honest, I was actually blown away. The Canon Corp 2009 was in the lineup, but there were some, and you expect that wine to be the shining star of any lineup, and it was really great, but gee whiskers, there were others that were just like, nudge, get out the way, I'm here to take my place on the pedestal. Really super stuff.
And I love the fact that for somebody who drinks as much wine in the best possible way as you do, you still get so excited by it.
I know, it's that cliche. I love my job. What can I say? It really is fun. And, it's a wonderful day for South African wine. But I'm also pleasantly surprised by the amount of foreign interest, even though we're in these COVID times and pandemic times. And I understand there's a lot of buyers that are going to be watching over streaming audio, streaming video, and placing bids via WhatsApp.
which makes it just this really new and different world. And it's a fairly new space for this particular auction, but we've seen a lot of online wine auctions flourish over the last year or so.
We have.
And it's a terrific opportunity to tell that South African wine story to a bigger audience.
Absolutely. What I've been saying in some of the pre-publicity that's been going out is that not only does this auction offer you an opportunity to buy lots of gems, part of our Venice history, and we all know the super lot that's coming up a little bit later, midway, I think, during the day. But for people who may have visited South Africa 20 years ago or 10 years ago and might have just fallen out of touch, this auction is a fantastic way to get back in touch with great South African wines.
I suspect that your greatest challenge for this auction is not deciding what to put in, but what to leave out.
Yes, therein does lie the rub, and the clue is in the title. It's the fine and rare wine auction. And personally, I believe that South Africa makes wonderful wines right across the board, but some of them are just not at that stage where they fit into the rare or the very fine category. And that's what we've promised the punters today. So that's what we've got to deliver. And you're quite right. There are a lot of wines out there that don't make it, but you've just got to see, they might not yet have had the track record, or they might just not have that rarity value. Some producers will say, I've got 100 6-bottle cases that I'd like to put on. That doesn't qualify as rare.
We were speaking to Fridjhon just a few moments ago, and he referenced the 2007 Sangiovese from Idiom as a wine that just surprised him. Had there been a couple of others for you that you go, gosh, this is really good?
Well, I have to admit, from yesterday's tasting, that Sangiovese really stood out for me. For me, that has got to be one of the wines that when I tasted it, I immediately knew that it was from Sangiovese. And we've had to wait until 2007 vintage for that to come up and hit us in the face, because that wine, when it's young, it's so tight and so taut and so packed with fruit. It's almost the antithesis of what one would expect from a Chianti made from Sangiovese. And I do know that people like us to say that it's our own interpretation of Sangiovese, but it's just really wonderful when you can pick up the glass and say, now this is what it says on the label. So that was really surprising. And I buy it, people buy it. Then the other ones that we had from yesterday, look, David and Nadia with their Hurstian and their Scalicor plots. They're not really that old vintages, but they are exceedingly fine wine. And they are always wines that make you believe that these wines can come from nowhere else but South Africa. So that wasn't a surprise, but it's always really comforting to taste something like that. And then actually quite a lot of the 2009s from the Cab collective, the Stellenbosch Cab collectives lot. We tasted several of those yesterday, and those are showing exceptionally well, really well in the lots. Cabernet Franc, Brevet Rats's Cabernet Franc, again showing exceedingly well. Yes.
And I love the cross section. I'm just in one answer, you give me so many different, not just wines, but different styles of wine. And it's almost South Africa's problem as much as it is South Africa's triumph, is that we do so much so well. Where do we start with the South African wine story? And today showcases that, just so much great wine across the board.
Very much so. I agree wholeheartedly. And it is our strength, but it could also be our weakness. However, I think there are people out there who are becoming niche South African collectors, or at least niche South African fans. So I think of my friend Kenichi Ohashi, Master of Wine, and his mates in Japan, and they are real fans of our new wave, more quote-unquote natural, because wine is a natural wine product. They're really fans of that style, but they've also taken on latched onto Shannon in a really big way. So Japan's kind of got its niche there, is the Shannons and the natural winemaking kind of style. I know that the Americans are still very big fans of our Cabernets and our Bordeaux blends. And the Germans like our Cap Classiques, and in fact the Japanese love our Cap Classiques as well. So I think we're going to have to push a little niche marketing going forward.
South African wine, we've got something for everybody. We've already had confirmation. Michael Fridjhon, being completely unprofessional, has decided he's going to be bidding, despite the fact he had to put this all together. Fridjhon is going to be doing the same. Is Cathy van Zyl paddle ready to hover?
I have a few people who might be buying a few cases on my behalf. Potentially, they've already appeared in front of your camera today.
All right, well, I've got this mixed feeling. I've made this point a couple of times. For the sake of the auction, for the sake of South African wine, I hope the prices absolutely rocket. For the sake of me, I hope they go really low so I can actually buy it.
Well, you see, there's always that. And just before coming on here, I heard that Grand Constance, a new buyer, has just indicated interest. He came online late last night indicating interest in that. So I think that's going to be some very interesting bidding. I cannot wait. Can I ask you a question?
You may indeed.
So who's bidding, and are you bidding, and what have you got your eye on?
I've been told by my wife I'm not allowed to bid at any more wine auctions. So if you're watching, darling, of course I'm not bidding. But just between the two of us, I love, like so many people, I've got a real soft spot for old vine Shannon.
Oh, yes.
Which I love. And you mentioned the Cabernet Collective. My wife loves big shouldered red wines.
So a lot for each of you. You could get the old vine Shannon lot, and she can get a Stellenbosch Cabernet Collective lot.
And the kids will not go to university, but I'm happy with that. I've made peace with that, Cathy.
Listen, plumbers earn good too, hey?
Thank you for all the work you've done with the auction. And
it's a pleasure.
Great deal of fun. Good luck with the bidding today.
Thank you.
And,
see you later.
We will do. There we go.
Cheers.
Cathy van Zyl, part of the team who has put the auction together and has had a great deal of fun doing so. Now, this is going to be one of the great moments in the Dan Really Likes Wine lifetime, because our guest now has shaved to be on the show. He's never been seen in public before since the age of 7 without a beard. But today he's clean shaven. He's wearing a suit, which I suspect is borrowed. But gee, he's looking magnificent. He's also twice my size, so I can't be too rude about him. He's a good friend of mine, Neil Cronenfeld. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, you are looking fabulous.
Thank you. I discovered this suit on one of those occasions where I lost my luggage, and I actually bought it in the UK, and it was always too long, and I found it in my cupboard again. It's like £850, like 20 years ago. So to try and keep up with Charlie, I thought, okay, I better have it made up again.
Well, you are cutting a most dashing figure. You're also cutting a very relaxed figure for somebody who's got one of the bigger days of his year ahead of him.
I am. This day basically started last year, April already, with planning. So, but yeah, we are relaxed, and everything looks beautiful. And like my mom said, prior to my wedding, only I will know if there's something that goes wrong. So you just wing it.
I know my friends at DHL often speak about how everything collapses into place eventually. I know it's been frenetic, but the venue looks wonderful. You've got a fabulous selection of wine. Great collection of buyers. We are primed for a really awesome day.
I'm looking forward to it, and also with the format that's changed slightly, so hopefully no technical hiccups. But yeah, as long as we give everybody a fair chance to bid on those fabulous lots, then I'm going to be happy.
The change from the auctions we knew it, the Nederburg auction days, lots of trade buyers, to where we see today, the Cape Fine and Rare Wine auction, lots of private buyers around the world. It's a significant shift, but I think it's quite an important one in terms of how it's exposing South African wine and how it's telling that South African wine story.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of cooperation before competition, and that's really what we're doing here. We're creating a platform for South Africa, and it's the only kind of platform that we've currently got for these curated wines, and to make sure that they're fine and rare and not commercially available anymore, and to also up the image of South Africa, which is a constant job that everybody needs to do. So, and changing the platform and going virtual as well just offers me a wider footprint of collectors of fine and rare. So yes, quite a step change from the days of the Niederberg auction per se.
We've already heard suggestions that there's somebody getting out of bed at 4 a.m. for Lauderdale. There are people in the UK, guys waiting in Hong Kong, people in Japan. The international footprint of this event is staggering.
That's the whole idea for me, is to really take South Africa out there, and especially it was triggered. And I mean, I've always been challenged to widen the footprint and change the footprint because of the buyers and the model of the past of changing with times. And then obviously something like COVID and just digital technology has made it possible for us to actually take it one step further. So in my long-term vision, it's always been to widen it. I think this just sped it on, and it was easier to convince the right people that this is the way to go.
The selection of the wine is extraordinary, and we've had a couple of the people responsible for that on the show already this morning. When you look at it, as somebody who's got such a long time in the wine industry, how proud are you of that list as a reflection of South Africa as a wine producing country?
Well, I think I saw some of the wines there that I've actually never had the opportunity to taste, which is amazing. And there is really something for everyone's palate. I mean, there's some amazing hidden gems, and then there's some of the more well-known wineries but special selections. So no, I'm very proud to put my name against that list as auction director. And if my card was in my pockets deep enough, then there wouldn't be an auction.
Speaking of which, Charlie Foley is the auctioneer, he's over from London. Do you have a special signal to let him know, right, sell it immediately to Neil because I want this at a good price?
Yeah, all I just showed this. So.
The price
the gavel will go down. It says sold. I did ask for my special number 007, but they said I should dress the part. So apparently I didn't get dressed the part because I got number 500. So that's probably the worth of pounds that I grew out over a weekend.
Well, 500 might be a good number, because I've heard, possibly slightly optimistic, that some people suggesting that we might close in on that R500,000 mark for your big star of today's show, Grand Constance.
That's right, amazing wine. And I was privileged to be part of the recorking as well, and I was scripted to in my opening address what to do so, but I decided to typical winemaker background to go off script, and it was amazing to see. I mean, it's like open heart surgery. So there's these 3 bottles, and they were being taken out, and John Vincent has his light on his head, and it's like binoculars, and we've got Joachim who supplies the cork, and that bottle is there's 1821, so it's not your standard console bottle. So the cork had to be cut to make sure that it fits, because it goes all the way. It's all handmade, and amazing that it's actually the same vintage as when Napoleon died. I mean, same month as well, May 1821 was always part of his collection. So yeah, it's one of 12 bottles around in the world. And I think the buyer today will be very fortunate to have that in his collection.
It's fabulous that it is up for auction. How did you get it into the auction?
We've got a special place called the Tabernacle, and when I started with the company, I went through the Tabernacles list and just wanted to start getting to know what we've got and what we have not got. And then I discovered these 3 bottles of that, and with the recorking we topped up the 2 bottles, so we've got 2 of the 12. So it's a little special find. And first wanted to, because it came from us, wanted to do it for the there's 2 bottles, but for today only 1 bottle. So, and we've waited, I think, 3 years now for it to just settle again after bottling. So,
because 197 years, just be a bit young, be a bit fresh. You want that 200 years.
We were speaking, myself and Michael Fridjhon was talking last night about an event that he held in the early 2000s, where Domaine Nuet was the guy, or the winery of choice, and they opened in 1924 sweet wine from Vauvray. And what was amazing about it is they did a recorking after about 50 years, and there must have been, among my winemaking friends we were talking, there must have been a little pickup of oxygen during that time, because there was a re-ferment, because that wine was still being nearly 80 years old, green. So it's amazing what these old wines can do. And I've been fortunate by topping up the Vinter Constance to actually have had a sip of two. I figured out it was about 50,000 rands worth of droplets that I had in my mouth. So yeah.
And for somebody who's had his fair share of wine over the years, was it absolutely amazing?
It's something that you can't explain. It really is. I don't have the right English vocabulary. Remember, I come from the West Coast, so it's like pay as you go English after Wednesdays. I don't have the right words in English too. It's absolutely amazing. Just the freshness, but the layers and layers of fruit, and I think that's what South Africa is so well known for. I mean, we build wines, but it's also because of our terroir. I mean, we've just got this complexity. It's just about harnessing it and not destroying it with finding agents and pumping and working wines too hard. And in those days, I think they just did that. They didn't work it too hard, and that's why the wines are still so expressive.
Well, I don't know who's going to buy it, but I know that are my new best friend by the end of today. Looking across the rest of the wine, we all have our own preferences, certain styles we favour over others. But what else for you is really exciting in this lineup?
Definitely the Cabernet Collective. So I've tasted some stunning Cabernets and I've seen some on there, but then also some stranger varieties. I mean, I had a wine last night, I think from Vondling, which was a Shiraz Mourvedre Carignan, Grenache, and the wine just showed so well. And then you've got there's some Cabernet Francs that's brilliant. The judges that we've got, I mean, they know what they're looking for, and each wine has got that special gees or oomph for why it's on the catalogue. But yeah, no, there's going to be a few special ones. Even they had the 2007 rakes. I mean, if you think South Africa, 15 years, it's in Tulbach, it's magnificent. I mean, the freshness on that wine and the palate weight. I mean, I'll take on France any day with it. Like we know, we've beaten them already because Chenin actually loves sunshine. We get all the sunshine and we pass over the leftovers to France. So therefore, the various vintage changes they've got. But yeah, ours always ripened.
Look, not to knock France too much. I think they are an up and coming young.
We're not getting to Australia in the second-hand wines we sold them.
Just before we let you go, so you've got a busy day ahead of you. Just your other hat, very quickly. I've been reading up some really exciting stuff happening in the Nederburg space. The Manor House is up and running. You've got a new chef in there now. It looks like it's a really cool place at the moment to come and hang out.
It is. It's really becoming the trendy place. It was under the top 20 places to visit. I must say all the lockdowns haven't been in our favor, redoing a kitchen and having no people to try it on. So that's why I gained a few pounds having to actually taste the menu over and over. But yeah, it's a reinvention of what we've got, and it's on this platform of taste, learn and discover, and it's a combination of food and wine, and it's working well for us. So, but somebody asked me the other day, I had to do a little video clip on so what's your title, and I'm actually not sure anymore. So I just made it MD of anything fine, rare, and beautiful. If it's an occasion or something physical, I'll be behind it.
I think it's a wonderful title, a great business card as well. Neil, congratulations. I know it's been a lot of hard work to put this together. You do have a fabulous team, but they do have a leader, and they've got a great one. So well done on today. Good luck. And as much as I hope the prices are low so I can buy stuff, I suspect you're going to get some great prices, some great wine, and that's as it should be.
We hope so. I mean, everything looks on standard and above standard, so the prices should be above as well.
Brilliant. Enjoy.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Neil Groenewald, the auction director at the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction, and giving us some insight into how it all comes together and some of the wine. Then we're hearing a lot of similar words from our guests today, talking about that Cabernet Collective, talking about that Idiom Sangiovese, talking about some of that Chenin, that Rakes from 2007, the Old Vine Project, some Chenin Blanc that's got a bit of age to it. And so instead of having to buy the wine and then sit it away in your cellar for the next decade, you've got wine that is ready to go and singing it beautifully already. As I look up, I'm seeing a selection of guests arriving. I see Benny Howard on my horizon from Mirandal, I think he was one of the original Cape Wine Masters. I see Kate Jackson arriving in the Estelle team, and I think Joseph Dafana is here as well, one of the judges joining us in just a moment. The sommelier over at La Colombe, but also a man whose own range of wine is getting a lot of excitement, and people are really buying into with great enthusiasm. So we'll have Joseph with us in just a second. It is 22, so we're also hoping in the next 10 minutes or so to have Greg Sherwood join us on the line from London. But before Greg comes, he's actually my third cousin, Joseph Tofano. We have Zimbabwean heritage that we share. He's the man at La Colombe. He's the man behind a really cool wine and a new joint venture with Harry Hartman, Marcel Hartman's wine brand. So we'll get Joseph on with us and come and join us as one of our judges. He's got his 7th glass of champagne of the morning in hand, and he is raring to go, and a wonderful addition to the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction team. As we say, Mangwanani Seku Joseph.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, it's lovely to see you. You are indeed. You are indeed. You're drinking Kaptosi, so a little hard to do with a mask on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to have to take off the mask for you to do the Cape class.
Well, welcome. It's lovely to see you as one of the busiest men in the industry at the moment, because you're overseeing La Colombe. You've got your own wine project, which we'll talk about in just a second, but you're also now part of this team at the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction. How much fun has this endeavor been?
Danny, to be honest, I mean, it's really life. I never knew that life can be this fun after COVID and all that stuff. And for sure, I'm still at La Colombe. Yes, I own Moss and Wine Spirits. It was such a privilege, I mean, to be part of the Cape Fine and Rare Auction judges. I learned a lot from all these world, like renowned wine judges, really like Michael Fridjhon, Fridjhon, Cathy. And it's such a learning curve for me. I don't think I'll be able to learn more than what I did already.
I do think it works both ways, though, because both Michael and Francois were talking about having somebody new, a younger palate on the space, just broadening the resource that the auction has in terms of pulling the wine together. The process of trying to work out what are we going to put in the auction, how difficult was that?
It was quite difficult. The first thing, I mean, I would like to really applaud them on trying to build continuity, which I think is the future. But this, I mean, they bring in fresh and new blood, training them, because those are the future. Like, we are going to be the future. Then it was such a process, hard and difficult, to really try to get like some exquisite wines which have been kept in very good conditions for a very long time. We tested really old wines. Some of them were older than me, and we actually tested these wines blind. And you could tell on the palate, you could tell with the color that the wine is fairly old, you know. So yeah, so I would like to tell the audience that please expect to get some world-class wines, good gems, and don't hesitate to support South African wines.
And that's exactly what today is about, celebrating South African wine which you now form an even more intimate part of, because you're making your own wine. There's the Mosi wine, there's the new partnership with Marcel, with the Harry Hartman wine. How's that been going? How much fun has that been?
It's been an incredible journey, to be honest. I mean, in Mosi Wines and Spirits, I'm running solo on that. That's purely me, which I started in 2014 when I was in Swartland. Then yesterday I launched Mosi Harry Hartman Bordeaux style blend with Cape Sauv, Petit Verdot, Merlot and Cabernet Franc. Well received, I must say. We had a first launch in Joburg, in Sandton, then another one was in PE, then yesterday at Aubergine Restaurant Gardens, Cape Town, and everyone loved the wine. I mean, it was quite amazing to see really people enjoying the wine. The comments we got and the views was such incredible. Michael Fridjhon had it in Joburg, and he raved a lot about the wine, which makes me very happy. Not just me, but South African wine industry in general.
That suggests that there's a definite part of the industry that's on an upward curve between your brand, what we're seeing with the auction today, what you see at La Colombe. Are we starting to claw our way back and move into a better space?
Yeah, look, it's really, look, everyone has been actually going through a tough time, I must say, and we're slowly crawling to normalcy. And this is the time when we need one another. We need to support each other, regardless of what we make, where you're from, gender or race. I think it's high time whereby we need to be close to each other than ever. And support these restaurateurs, support these winemakers, support the wine industry in general. So I drink. I wish I could have more people. We could have more people drink more wine like I do every day. Because I make sure that I drink South African wine every day.
It's a fabulous philosophy to have, and it's one that we're going to be doing a lot of today, because not just buying and bidding for wine, but drinking some along the way too, which makes it such a fantastic day. When it comes to that wine, you've been through it all, you're part of the selection process. I'll ask you the same question I asked your fellow judges who helped put this all together. What's the wine that stood out for you? What's the wine that's really caught your attention?
There were so many of them, but I'd like to think or say that good wine is that you can actually have the second sip of, and the best one is that you can actually have a second glass of and even finish a bottle. So expect to have all these wines that I just mentioned. You'll be able to finish not just one bottle but 2 bottles. So please bid and buy more.
Will you be bidding today?
I will try, but I don't know if my pockets will permit, but I'll try. For the sake of supporting, I'll try.
I think that's the worry for all of us, really. There's so many international bidders, so many people determined to be part of it, that we're going to see prices get quite high quite quickly.
It's gonna, yeah, for sure, definitely. I mean, we expect really the price to skyrocket a bit, purely because, look, I mean, because of COVID. I'll keep on mentioning COVID because it's actually happened to rip so many businesses apart. People weren't traveling, so there are 2 things. So people were not really making money because there was no business. Some business made more money and they were not even being able to travel, which means they got more to spend. So those are the people we're actually calling to say, if you have excess or surplus, please come and bid, or actually put your bidding card up and buy South African wines.
Which is exactly what people are going to be doing all over the world. As somebody so entrenched in the wine industry now, wine has given you this incredible journey to be part of. How important do you think it is for that industry to have a day like today and to be able to celebrate South African wine in this way?
It's so good in many ways, I must say, because every time when I hear, talk, or see people mentioning about wines in general, they think that buying a bottle of Mosi, buying a bottle of Nederbeek, buying a bottle of Skerfbeek or Colmela, whatever, Sadi, Malenyo, is promoting the producer only. That's not the case. It goes a long way, the whole process of value chain. I personally value and respect those people who work in the vineyards, because a good wine is made in the vineyards. You know, I personally believe wine is made in the vineyards. Who looks at the vineyards? The viticulturalists and those guys, I mean, the farm laborers, the farm helpers. I hate to use the name laborer, but there are those farm workers. They did extremely wonderful job to make sure that the vines are healthy and happy, thereby producing very good and healthy grapes. Then the winemaker will actually be able to make very good wine. You can never make bad wine from very healthy grapes. So it goes all the way. So by buying these bottles, you're not just promoting South African wine industry in general, you're not just supporting the brand itself, but you're supporting, like, pretty much it goes all the way down. You know, so we need that.
It is such an important part of the story. Speaking of stories, am I right in saying that there's a rather important documentary that's coming out in the next little while that talks to the Zimbabwean wine story?
Indeed, yes. I mean, like most of the people know that in 2017 and 18, he captained Team Zimbabwe to the World Cup or the Olympics of Wine in France. You may call them if you like. And we had Third-Man Films from Australia following us, and we shot a documentary for 2 years, which was 305 hours and got shrunk to just 1 hour. So it was nominated in Tribeca Film Festival on the 10th of June. Out of 11,000, more than 11,000 plus films and documentaries, it was actually picked or nominated as one of the 66 only, which are going to the finals, and hopefully it will be just like my octopus teacher. Maybe we might actually get another accolade in South Africa.
Joseph, the film star, is there anything you can't do?
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's another talent which I'm going to actually unearth now from now on. But I will never forget about the wines.
Indeed, indeed. The auction starts in just over 10 minutes. I'm very excited. I know you are as well. I'll let you go and finish off your cup, Classique. Thanks for being part of the show, and thanks for all the work in putting the auction together.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
There we go, Joseph Stefano, and we're going to be chatting to Joseph again in the next while, more specifically about that Mosi wine and tasting it, and his new partnership with Harry Hartman. Now we are hoping to have Greg Sherwood on the line. This is dependent on Greg Sherwood having crawled out of bed in London. It is Saturday morning after a Friday night. He did say he'd try and join us just before the end of our show, which will be at 10 o'clock, as we then go across and watch the auction live to get things going. Charlie Foley, our man who we had at the start of the day, and we'll look forward to having him on after the show as well, because we're going to have a second live show. You're being subjected to an industrial dose of Dan Really Likes Wine today. We'll do a wrap-up show for about 45 minutes or so once the auction is done. So that should be about 2:30. We'll see how it's all gone, see what money has been spent, and see, I think most importantly, just how much money has been spent on that bottle of Grand Constance. 200 years of South African wine history in one little unassuming bottle. It has been recorked, it has been resealed, and as we heard from Michael Fridjhon, from John Vincent, and also from Neil Grunewald, it is still in immaculate drinking condition. And I struggle to get my head around that, the fact that 200 years on, this wine is still in such marvelous condition. So yeah, just a really exciting day for the wine industry. And we're not getting any luck with Mr. Sherwood, but we do have another good friend of mine, a man who patrols the vineyards of Mirandal, I think he was on at the original Cape Wine Masters in about 1710. And he's now here, and I suspect armed with a paddle, and he knows far more about wine than I ever will. Benny Howard, hello.
Goodness gracious me, welcome.
What a pleasant surprise to have you. Well, not a surprise really, because it's a prime wine event. You can't really have a prime wine event unless Benny Howard happens to be part of it.
No, and you also come for a nice glass of bubbly early in the morning. Cleans the palate and it stimulates the brain.
I think it's an excellent way to start the day.
Welcome to Stellenbosch.
Thank you. It's great to be here, particularly today, because there's a real buzz in the air today, isn't there?
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this for a whole year because, as you know, COVID disrupted the whole lifespan of the wine industry, and we need to start up again and go forward. It doesn't help to sit back and cry.
And I get a real sense out of today that despite the awareness, we're not being blindly optimistic. There's an awareness that we still are in a difficult space, and will be for a while. But there are glimmers of hope. There is light on the horizon, and a day like today just seems to amplify that sense of hope.
Sure. And I think, the auction with its track record and history going back to 1975 has been the platform for our special wines for so many years. And just looking around, some of the buyers that I have seen around for about 40 years, they are all back to come and buy the jewels of the country. And that's important. It's also important that they are the guys that are going to buy the wines to let consumers who enjoy these very special wines to be able to buy it from these guys. So, yes, it's a great event.
The aging of wine in South Africa, you will know particularly well, both as a master of wine, but also at Mirandal, you have a great collection of really old wine. And I think it's something we sometimes need a reminder of in South Africa, that our wine does have that aging potential, that we do have fine wine, rare wine, that's got decades of potential to it.
Absolutely. I was very honored to taste some of the old wines from the Tabernacle, just a few hundred meters away from where we're sitting, about 2-3 weeks ago, and precious wines from the 1960s and the 1970s and even the early 1980s, and they are still in prime drinking condition. It just emphasizes to me that it's fine to drink young, juicy, easy drinking red wines. But there's a place to drink them when they're slightly older. And when they get older, like you and me, they stay so well together. And if you think about, it's just the other day that we still were drinking the 1970s, and they're now 45 years plus in age. I happened to open a Nederburg auction 76 Cabernet Sauvignon with Dave Hughes 3 weeks ago. And we couldn't stop raving how fresh and young and beautiful and complex the wine was still after 45 years. You know, it's half the age of most of the senior wine drinkers around the world. Not you and me.
Well, you are aging gracefully and elegantly, and that speaks to a lot of our wines. It's a wonderful comparison. The wine we have up for sale today, there's the big one, we've spoken a lot about it today, the 200-year-old bottle, and that in itself is just such a fabulous story. But aside from that, what else on this lineup today has caught the expert eye of Benny Howard?
You know, it's almost like asking which is your favorite child. It is difficult to pinpoint one single wine. To me, the older reds are the wines that really would be the top of my list for buying, because my old wines have been depleted from my cellar. I've drunk all the 1950s and 1960s, apart from a few that are still waiting to be consumed. But I think the older reds are the wines, because at the price that they are going to be sold, I promise you, it is the bargain of the decade, I always say. On the white side, I think the older Chenin's are just amazing. What we produce in terms of Chenin is unbeatable for quality and price in the world. And then, obviously, the Noble 8 harvests. I mean, they are so close to my heart, because those are the wines that you open a half bottle, you drink maybe with friends a half of it, and you continue during the week to drink the rest of the bottle, small glass by small glass during the week, because they are so intense and rich in flavor. What Günter Brösel used to say, it's the sunshine of South Africa in a glass. And that is so beautiful. And we don't do that enough. So those are the wines that I would like to see coming to my cellar. But, you know, the budget is the limit.
Well, we have a mutual friend called Herman who might be able to help stock that cellar. We might need to give him a call during the course of the auction.
I think we must bring him around here next year and let him sit down with us, and the two of us will make him put up the paddle quite a lot of times. But there's some wonderful Merendals obviously in the cellar at Merendal, and I'm glad that we can boast the 69s of Merendal, the very first wine ever bottled at the estate. So that's special.
It is. It's a wonderful slice of history, as today is a wonderful slice of history. Before we let you go and prepare to hopefully bid and take home some lovely, lovely wine today, just your sense of this auction as a showcase for South African wine, and as I guess an endorsement of where we are as an industry, both for ourselves as South Africans, but also to the world watching on.
Absolutely. The fact that we have an auction that is being held year after year, except for last year, to bring these wines to the trade and to the public, I think is one of the most important facets to confirm the quality of South African wine. It is wine that comes from the original producer's cellar, so it has been stored in perfect conditions. So the buyer knows that he's getting something that is uniquely well preserved in the bottle. And you can open it with confidence to your friends and to the people that would like to enjoy these special wines. And I always say there will always be a special occasion at least once a week, once a month, where we can open these wines and enjoy them. Because that's why wine is in a bottle with a cork. It's so easy to open it, and we must enjoy them. And we must not be afraid to share these wines with people, because that's one thing that I learned in my 40 years plus in the industry. Wine is made to be shared. And that is the beauty of what wine is.
And that is why Benny Howard is one of my favorite philosophers and a great teacher. Benny, thank you for joining us this morning. You have some bidding to do, so I'll let you get to that. And I look forward to being around at Mirandel soon, and we can go and lay siege to that cellar of yours.
Anytime, anytime. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Benny Howard wrapping us up as a very special guest on a very special edition of Dan Really Likes Wine from the Rupert Museum here in Stellenbosch, as we celebrate a really important day for the industry, for South African wine, headlined by that 200-year-old bottle of Grand Constance, which by the time we come back to you for our second live show of the day will have been sold, but for how much? The leading question, but one of many, given just how much fine wine is available. A big thank you for joining us. Big thank you to the team at the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction who've put today together, along with the masterful Ronaldo Silvestri, who always does such a fabulous production job. And we'll be back around about 2:30 or thereabouts, giving you some results in the interim. You can keep an eye on the Cape Fine and Rare Wine Auction social media pages, and also the Dan Really Likes Wine channels, and we'll let you know what's happening, how the prices are going, and how the bigger lots have fared as they get sold. Charlie Foley is about to begin. Neil Groenevold will be opening up the auction, and we will be back at around about 2:30 for a wrap-up show to tell you what's happened, how everything has gone, and what a success today has been. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back a little later on this afternoon. Cheers from a great day for South African wine.